Last year, the YouTuber ImAllexx was lambasted with serious accusations from his ex-partner alleging abuse. A couple of weeks ago, Alex broke his 9-month-long silence to finally address the allegations head-on in an almost 2-hour-long response video. In an unexpected turn of events, instead of merely refuting the claims against him, Alex goes a step further and attempts to flip the script on his ex-girlfriend Alice by claiming that he was actually a victim of her abuse, and as part of her continued harassment campaign against him, she has manufactured a story of fiction in order to further victimise him.
Alice hit me, kicked me, emotionally, verbally and physically abused me, as well as threatened me and blackmailed me constantly throughout our relationship.
This video as a whole will not serve as an opinion piece as to who is right or who is wrong between the two contradicting parties. There are plenty of videos like that on YouTube already, and if that is what you're seeking, I would implore you to exit this video now and find someone who is producing content more situated towards the drama of the situation. What you're about to watch is a carefully thought out analysis with the aim of deciphering the psychology of ImAllexx, attempting to uncover a more unbiased truth behind what appears to me to be a meticulously engineered persona produced by Alex to shield the much more complicated and real individual underneath. Of course, I recognise the entertainment value that can be found in an overly opinionated point of view from a person who was not present and probably isn't qualified to comment on a situation that they were not directly involved in. So out of respect for the traditional commentary YouTuber attitude, I will very briefly, before we begin the actual analysis, divulge a shortened version of my own opinion on Alex and Alice's dynamic. Feel free to skip this part. I would, because who cares? However, from what I have seen from both sides, I have determined that this is a case of two people who were mutually abusive of one another. I also believe that in the spirit of keeping the deep-rooted contempt that they have for each other alive, the same contempt that was likely at the core of their relationship, creating such an unhealthy environment to begin with, each party is engaging in the attempted complete takedown and vilification of the other. Instead of recognising their collective toxicity on a more wider scale, both Alex and Alice seem mutually committed to painting themselves as the overall victim and their counterpart as the overall perpetrator. In my opinion, this is a major misrepresentation of the truth by both sides, spawned from a shared desire to protect one's own image, while simultaneously weaponising image as an act of vindictiveness against the other person. I do not believe that either of these people were the black and white abuser, nor do I believe that I am confusing reactive abuse for mutual abuse. I recognise and understand what reactive abuse is supposed to be, but I do not accept that as an accurate designation in this instance. In cases like this, where both sides have done a lot wrong, backed up with evidence, rather than one person completely victimising the other, I do not think that any of it should be made public. Leave us out of it. And I think that by involving ourselves in any of Alex and Alice's back and forth, me included, we were unknowingly allowing ourselves to be a part of the ammunition for two people who intend to be equally destructive of one another. The overwhelming feeling I'm left with for both sides is second-hand embarrassment. Neither of them have been able to unilaterally disparage the other as intended, and instead they're both just left with a mixed bag of opinions by the public, leading to questions being asked of both of their characters, something that you can tell they each give huge importance to, given that they both weaponise image. In the meantime, they have expelled all of their dirty laundry out in the open for thousands of gossip-hungry teenagers to digest, dissect and condemn, and from where I'm sat, I don't really see any lasting purpose. In short, although it may not fit in with the popular narrative right now, my honest point of view is that both of these people played a role in the other's suffering. And exploring that to any deeper level than I already have in my personal time in preparation for this video would only go on to bore the fucking life out of me. Hence why I'm focusing on what I believe to be the only compelling subject matter that can be salvaged from any of this, and that is the unseen psychology behind ImAllexx's response video. We will delve straight into that right after I've told you about today's sponsor. I feel as if my frontal lobe has came in finally at the age of 25, and with that I am trying to be a better man. One thing that I've learned on my quest of self-betterment is that the more you do something that is beneficial for yourself that you don't want to do, the more the part of your brain that is associated with willpower and effort grows. Something that I have been a bit too lazy to take seriously, but I know deep down I shall crack on and do, is reading books regularly. That's why I'm excited to share with you that this has just came through my letterbox. A book! And it's not just any book, it's the book by Hungry Minds. The ultimate guide to rebuilding civilization. This book quite literally has a bit of everything. In the opening pages, it will take you through all the first necessary steps of the human condition, like how to make fire, how to find water. And then deeper into the book, you even have segments about self-improvement. A few pages along psychotherapy. So you can imagine, this part has really got me intrigued. This part of the book explains how the nervous system will store trauma in the body long after the consciousness has repressed it. And that is a way that we have evolved in order to stop ourselves from repeating negative patterns. Yet it can also stunt our personal growth as we begin to bring old wounds into new dynamics. The ultimate guide to rebuilding civilization is a beautifully illustrated and very intriguing read. Beyond the sponsor, I would truly recommend it for anyone trying to push themselves to read more like I am, or just to look nice on your bookshelf. A staple point of YouTube apology videos is the crocodile tears. And while this isn't an apology video per se, and Alex refrains from crying at any point, although his eyes do look very glossy on occasion, he does well to still utilise what I see as quite a manipulative angle that content creators often go for, and that is pre-planned sadness. Throughout the entirety of Alex's almost 2-hour-long response video, he speaks in this depressing, monotone, woe is me voice, something that I truly believe is a thought-out and cultivated method of extracting sympathy.
She continued doing this for months, and these lies have been shared in many videos. My friend saw the TikToks Alice had been posting online, as she had gone through and followed them all after our breakup. For the last year, I have been in and out of hospital, and this greatly delayed my response.
If Alex's response was live and in the moment, then it'd be up to interpretation whether or not the sadness he is conveying is genuine. We could all have our own opinions, but no one would know for sure outside of Alex himself, because anything in a live format could be off the cuff. In this case, this is a scripted and edited YouTube video recorded 9 months after his initial exposing. Alex has had all the time in the world to prepare and compose himself, and on the day he's plugged in his lighting, set up his camera in a certain way, synced his audio, recorded, edited, sat and checked the video over, all before uploading it to YouTube. With all of that in mind, we have to accept that this pity me demeanour is deliberate. If Alex had no other intentions with this video aside from delivering his own side of the story, then he could simply read his script in a neutral tone like I'm doing right now. The point that I'm trying to make here is backed up by the fact that recently, ImAllexx has been doing live streams, and during these live streams, the gloomy voice is mysteriously and yet conveniently absent.
Hello, 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 testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3. If you're in the chat, say cheese.
The streams alone prove that Alex is not in a constant, perpetual state of depression that renders him unable to speak without this tragic tone to his voice. And so, although the sorrow may be a true representation of how he's feeling, I don't doubt that, the fact it's being expressed constantly during the response, in my opinion, is a calculated move. That in itself explains to us that Alex's lasting objective here is for you and I, the audience, to view him as a victim. And as he demonstrates, he is prepared to go to considered lengths in order to achieve that very depiction. The beginning of any piece of content sets the tone, and Alex is all too aware of this. He's been doing YouTube for a very long time. Subsequently, whatever direction Alex decides to take in the opening portion of his response offers us an easily achieved yet clear inclination of his overall stance towards his ex-partner and what he wants to convey about Alice. Alex decides to spend the first 7 minutes of the video, a significant length of time, talking very specifically about the claims that Alice made that he was charged by the police and how this, according to Alex, is a lie.
Since our relationship ended, Alice has lied continuously for the last 12 months that I was under a police investigation to friends, ex-girlfriends, and YouTube commentary channels. Alice has continued to make false allegations about me to this day and said that she had pressed charges against me in a comment on TikTok. This is a lie, as at no point have I been interviewed, arrested, or charged with a crime, but Alice continues to slander me publicly with these lies.
As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I have no desire to explore who is right and who is wrong. I rather intend on offering a synopsis to provide context as to everything that Alex is trying to accomplish with his response. In the grand scheme of things, taking into account all of the back and forth accusations, whether or not a police report was filed is quite a small element of this entire situation. Let's assume for a minute, just for argument's sake, that Alex is correct and Alice did not ever file a police report. That would still be a very niche area of this conversation. A point that Alex would understandably want to make clear at some point in the video, but not worthy of 7 whole minutes of airtime. To initiate the video with this long spiel about the apparent false police report demonstrates to me Alex's attempt to entirely discredit Alice. Alex is setting a stage to invalidate everything that she said about him, and he's doing so by hyper-focusing on this one very specific possible lie. In his shoes, it makes sense to make this single apparent lie the focal point, because, as I've already said, Alex's intention is to completely discredit his ex, with the intention being that we as the audience cast doubt on everything that has been alleged of him, which would also include the parts that are indisputably true.
I'm gonna fucking bash your fucking head against the wall with a brick if you don't shut the fuck up.
Alex is very purposely bringing into question Alice's integrity from the very beginning in order for him to save face as much as humanly possible. In the next portion of the video, Alex further demonstrates his craving to debunk his ex with even more isolated and particular examples.
Alice also posted a series of tweets in an argument on Twitter, stating that I do not have BPD, also known as borderline personality disorder. Alice has even gone as far as diagnosing me as a narcissist in her document, and she claimed that she is an empath. I was diagnosed by my psychiatrist with what they believe to be emotionally unstable personality disorder, also known as borderline personality disorder. I was then referred to my local community mental health team after the diagnosis from my psychiatrist. To claim that I haven't been diagnosed with BPD is untrue.
The confusion regarding Alex's personality disorder diagnosis, as far as I can see it, is being portrayed as yet another example of Alice lying. But that's just evidently not the case. The documents that Alex himself uses to prove this diagnosis were dated back to July 2024. Notably, that is a month after Alice exposed him, and by the looks of it, a considerable amount of time after their relationship had ended. What we can determine from this is that when Alice states that Alex does not have BPD, she is only speaking from the level of awareness that she had at the time. As far as she was concerned, she wasn't lying, and Alex knows that.
Alice has made multiple tweets spreading false information about my medical history, whilst continuing to lie during these arguments she has online regarding me. Alice replied to a tweet which she believed was about me, where she denied that I have BPD, as she thought the original tweet was in defence of me.
It appears to me as if Alex wanted to squeeze his diagnosis into the video somewhere, and instead of doing so in an authentic and unaccompanied portion of his response, he has chosen instead to use his EUPD as yet another vice to attack Alice's credibility, even though he has to be aware that Alice did not know about this diagnosis because it happened after they broke up. If I was being pessimistic, I would take the stance that this is a subtle indicator that Alex is a man who will happily weaponise his mental health. Ironically enough, something that he accuses Alice of doing later in his response video. Obviously, that's just an assumption. What we can say for sure, however, is that Alex has exhibited comfortability with misrepresenting the facts of a situation in order to achieve his own desired outcome. The outcome here, of course, is painting Alice as a liar. I remain committed to keeping my commentary over their relationship and who was victimising who to a minimum, but the part of the response that I'm about to probe plainly reveals a period of time where Alex was legitimately the abused, rather than the abuser.
We were in bed together, and Alice told me when I took my shirt off that if I was going to do that, then she wanted me to sleep downstairs. I told Alice I wasn't going to do that because I wanted to sleep in our bed that night, and she had complained that I spent too much time away from her. This angered Alice, and she called me names. I ignored her and turned away so I could go to sleep. Alice turned around in bed and kicked me in my lower back, and I told her to fuck off, and then she kicked me even harder and then started to donkey kick me in my neck and in the back of my head. Alice had done this so hard that I fell out of the bed while she was still kicking me. I proceeded to get incredibly angry, and I shouted at Alice and I insulted her, and this is something that I deeply regret doing.
While we can't verify this version of events, Alex does show screenshots that are objectively damning towards Alice. A message that stood out to me was a threat that Alice made, telling Alex to fix up or else she would break his property. That is a premeditated, conditional threat. Something that, in my opinion, can never be labelled as reactive abuse. So let's take that and momentarily assume, again, for argument's sake, that Alex's retelling of the physical altercation is correct and he was donkey kicked in the back of the head.
And then she kicked me even harder and then started to donkey kick me in my neck and in the back of my head. Alice had done this so hard that I fell out of the bed while she was still kicking me.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I'm just an incredibly flawed human being myself, but if someone was repeatedly kicking me in the back of my head, in the moment, I've got to say there's a good chance I'd maybe respond physically as well. I wouldn't want to, but as people, we are flawed. And if you're honest with yourself, you have to accept that there is a part of all of our brains that is reactionary. It comes out in different ways for different people, but it does exist. That's why when Alex goes on to say the following, alarm bells go off for me.
I proceeded to get incredibly angry, and I shouted at Alice and I insulted her, and this is something that I deeply regret doing.
Instead of just admitting that he reacted to being kicked in the head with verbal abuse, which would be a normal human reaction, Alex appears to instead position himself on the moral high ground, which just strikes me as disingenuous. To say you deeply regret your reaction, whilst at other times in this same very video you show up as someone who seems to be invested in the complete disparagement of Alice, shows a lack of consistency in line with someone who, rather than being genuinely regretful of their behaviour, is instead merely regretful that their image has been negatively impacted. I'm just struggling to garner any sense of honesty with anything he's saying. It's almost as if he's hell-bent on crafting a false perception in our heads that he is the undisputed victim, and that's an angle that was never going to work. Alex's public appearance, which is something that I believe matters above all else to this man, would probably fare better if he spent more time owning up and recognising his own shortcomings. Yet he's more interested in constantly misrepresenting reality, as if, in his mind, the audience are all stupid. There's one of two possible scenarios here. Either this is a narcissistic endeavour to flip the narrative on its head, or maybe in his viewpoint, he really is the victim. He may be unable to see anything different, hence why he appears to try so hard to portray that, because he actually thinks it. It could be the case that Alex struggles to recognise his own flaws, and in his mind, he really cannot do any wrong, which is why it's coming across as embarrassing. His blatant attempt to manipulate the story, he may not even recognise that he's doing that. Further into the video, Alex dedicates a portion of time to speak on examples of his ex-girlfriend being manipulative herself, even time-stamping the segment as lying and manipulation. Although there do exist examples of Alice appearing pretty manipulative throughout the segment during screenshots, Alex ironically goes on to disclose a version of events that prove that he is also being manipulative with her, and I believe that he has done this inadvertently.
Alice has posted texts and videos of me begging for her back and apologising to her. I understand how irrational my behaviour looks, as I was going from one extreme to another emotionally. I was desperate for any form of solution, as it is clear from the voice notes and videos that Alice has shared that the constant emotional manipulation was having a severe effect on me, and I was saying whatever I thought I had to at the time to end the constant arguing, fighting and blackmail.
In Alice's original expose, she included voice notes where Alex was begging for Alice to come back. ImAllexx has just stated very plainly that this was him saying whatever he thought he had to say in order to achieve a desired outcome.
And I was saying whatever I thought I had to at the time to end the constant arguing, fighting and blackmail.
It seems that Alex fails to realise that by declaring that the voice notes of him begging for his ex to come back had a premeditated goal behind them that extended beyond actually getting her back, he's admitting to manipulation. If you're sending voice notes where you're expressing yourself in an emotional state, yet in your head, as he's now admitted, you have a solid intention, you are using a facade of emotion in order to get your own way, aka emotional manipulation. Alex can dress this up in whatever floral pink attire of self-victimization that he so chooses, but whatever your justification for the manipulation, the black and white fact of the matter is that what he has described doing is in itself a manipulation tactic, which is quite laughable when we take into account that this assumably accidental confession is sandwiched into a portion of content that aims to convince the audience of another party's manipulation. What appears evident is that this sort of stuff was a theme between the two's dynamic. One side has demonstrated this behaviour in the form of now leaked text messages, and the other has looked into a camera lens and fucking admitted it without even realising what he's admitting. Given this, again, in my opinion, mutual toxicity, it would be so very refreshing if a sense of accountability could be read from either side. But it appears as if accountability from these two only ever pokes its head up when it's being coupled with more damning information about the other person.
I would send Alice voice notes apologising because I did many things wrong throughout our relationship. I should not have retaliated with the horrific language and insults, and I was deeply ashamed that I had lowered myself to that type of behaviour. I continued to apologise because Alice had begun to lie about me and harass me after we had broken up.
I have watched Alex's response in full a couple of times now in order to make this video for you. A great sacrifice, I know. There would naturally be a lot more to cover if I was aiming to tackle the cutthroat drama of all of this. But because I instead wanted to learn more about the psychology of Alex, there isn't much more I can say at this point without repeating myself. I feel that from the cards Alex was willing to show during this carefully crafted and scripted response, I've been able to, in part, see a little bit behind the curtain at least, and form my own interpretation as to what Alex's lasting intentions are. I'm left with the feeling that Alex holds his public image to an enormously high regard. Not unlike many creators, really. But I feel that with Alex in particular, how he is perceived is his be-all and end-all. His ex was aware of this, and I feel that that is why, on numerous occasions throughout their relationship, Alice held his need to be viewed favourably over his head, and often threatened to spill the beans, so to speak, before she actually did it, because she knew what effect that would have on him. Alex's potential obsession with controlling the outside perception of himself gives a huge amount of context for his incapability to recognise that he was not the black and white victim of his ex-girlfriend's abuse. I feel as if Alex's longing to repair his reputation has blinded him almost. And I'm going to make an optimistic assumption here and say that his downright manipulation of reality doesn't come from sheer maliciousness alone. I think it's more a case of Alex having a warped mind that is so fixated on coming out of all of this with his reputation at least partially intact. So he's subconsciously fabricated a version of events that would better suit that outcome. In summary, I think it's very fair to assume that Alex is a damaged, mentally ill man, and that the content creator lifestyle has only added to that for him and has truly distorted his brain for the worst. I think, from personal experience and from observing others as well, YouTube and everything that comes with it is a highly corrupting medium, especially if you're already not a very well-adjusted person in the first place, with Alex being a major example of that. On a personal level, as a member of the audience, I do not appreciate being misled by Alex as he tries to convince us of this false narrative where he is the complete victim. He isn't. And this may come from a place of sheer desperation and obsession over how we all perceive him. But at the end of the day, Alex, none of us want to be gaslit by you. We all saw you threaten to hit Alice in the head with a brick. And listen, let me get controversial, and I understand some of you won't agree with this part that I say. I have looked into a lot of what she has said to Alex as well, and I really struggle to come to any conclusion other than these two people victimised each other. For that reason, I will not waste any more of my valuable energy speaking on any of this in the future. They both shared their individual version of events to thousands of strangers. Those same strangers are going to be left with their own opinions. Some will be more emotionally invested than others because they're either teenagers or severely unemployed adults. And I'm sure because of that, there'll be a lot of people who will speak on this for months and months to come. I will not be one of them. I actually hope that both parties can eventually truly go their separate ways. Both people in this situation have their own lives that they can now choose to live. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't done already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.